I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. All will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. And dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Folks, to the Corporation Nation, I'm Clint Richardson. It is the 12th of May, 2014. A very special guest tonight. We're going to be talking about, something that we all take for granted, actually. It's a little thing we call oxygen. Now, who better to talk about that subject than Mr. Oxygen himself, a gentleman named Ed McCabe, who is a best-selling author on the subject, a lecturer. He's actually been around for quite some time promoting the concept of, well, basically flooding your body with oxygen to create, above all things, a healthy set of cells in your body. It's amazing when you think about it because, again, we take this thing called oxygen. We can't see it. We generally don't touch it, feel it, or even taste it. And yet it's one of the most important things around. So I'd like to introduce you to Ed McCabe, also known as Mr. Oxygen. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Hi, Clint. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, great. Why don't you start off by telling us how you got into this field? And this was, of course, way back in the, well, it was obviously the 80s. That was your first best-selling and now basically a classic, cult classic book, I guess you'd say. And Oxygen Therapy is a New Way of Approaching Disease, right?
Yes, that's out of print. And the new book is Flood Your Body with Oxygen, like you said.
Absolutely. Brilliant idea. I must say I've done some research into this myself, and also I'm very familiar with Dr. H. Ruat's work, who has certainly probably learned from you as well. So how did you get into this concept that oxygen is so good for us?
Well, this is, people who have not experienced this don't really know how hard it was then, but before computers, the only way to really get outside the box information was if it was either dropped in your lap, or the only research you could do was to sign up for fringe newsletters. Now, these are like mailings, small publications from specific experts in areas to people that are into that. And you couldn't just Google something. You had to know it existed somehow, find it, and then you had to subscribe to these newsletters. And at the time, they were telling us that AIDS was spreading throughout society, throughout all the people. There was nothing you could do about it, and we're all going to die from it. And so I said to myself, well, I know that already from what I know that the world is a duality. It's a dualistic place. So if something exists that can kill everybody like AIDS, there has to be something that can cure everybody, like active oxygen. And so I started to look around, knowing that the only problem was finding whatever this anti-AIDS thing was. And after a while, I remember in some of these fringe newsletters that I subscribed to, there was mention of various doctors that were on to something that was really different. For example, Dr. William F. Koch, he said that a virus could be separated from the host cell. And I said, that's amazing. Nobody can do that. But it was just like a little one-line thing. And then I had to go search. Again, no internet. Call people, write people. Phones were expensive back then, so it was hard to do this. But eventually I developed enough resources so that I could see that there was this area using oxygen that no one in modern times knew about.
Now you mentioned Dr. Koch. Is that Dr. William F. Koch?
Yes, William F. Koch.
So, yeah, that's funny you should say that. I was just actually revisiting some old research. He discovered that all disease states in the 1920s, actually, long ago, are basically just different manifestations of deficiencies of oxygen at the cellular level.
Exactly. And coming at that from, without that basic premise, but just finding out he was using something called glyoxylide and other things, and he had this book out, The Neoplastic and Viral Origins of Cancer, and trying to figure out what is this all about. This guy is onto something that nobody else is talking about. Well, what he's really onto is really very simple, and this is how I get into it. It was because they're all said everyone is going to die. If you're having sex, you're going to get AIDS, and we're all going to be dead. That's all there is to it. I said, well, I beg to differ. I bet you I can find out more that somebody's not telling us. Now, this was before everyone was aware of the corruption in government, corruption in the pharmaceutical industry, corruption in Congress, corruption everywhere, in all levels, in every area of society. It was all hidden back then, so it was even harder. So I had to chisel. I get this picture now of chiseling it out of rock, the information that we're going to give you in the next 2 hours. It's really simple, which is the basis of that. I'll say it now, so since it's such a long show, we can get everybody who tunes in. We'll say it a number of times later. But there's basically two things that go on in the human body having to do with oxygen. The first is that all the bacteria, the viruses, the funguses, and the pathogens that cause all the diseases, every disease you can think of, some component or part of that disease process has to do with, as Dr. Koch said, a lack of oxygen. Linus Pauling also would say this later on in the 50s, lack of oxygen. And so once you find out that, wait a minute, this lack of oxygen is part of all disease, then wouldn't the first thing you'd want to do is to check your oxygen level? Okay, so if I've got a lack of oxygen, how can that be, first of all? All these viruses, bacteria, virus, fungus, pathogen, how can it be that these all have something to do with it? Well, the first thing you find out is that all the microbes that cause all the diseases are anaerobes, or if they're not exactly clinically, scientifically perfect anaerobes, according to somebody's definition, they act just like them. In other words, anaerobes can't, by definition, anaerobes cannot live in oxygen. Now, some people will argue, well, viruses aren't alive. Well, I would argue they are, since they have a basic intelligence to infect you, move to somebody else and infect them. I would say that they're close to alive because you could watch crystalline life forms grow.
They certainly have a purpose, don't they?
Yeah, and there's some kind of intelligence going on there. So you can take even the viruses, bacteria, fungus, mycoplasms, prions, all this crazy stuff that they're coming up with. They're finding smaller and smaller and stranger variants of what can kill us, what can cause disease, what can make us sick. Well, it turns out they're all anaerobes. They all cannot live in oxygen. Anaerobe means unable to live except in the absence of oxygen. So then you say to yourself, okay, well, if all the things that cause disease, if they can't live in oxygen, is there anything special about what's the strongest kind of oxygen, or is there an oxygen that's the best at this? Because as anyone who knows anything about chemistry knows, there's O1, oxygen, O2, regular breathing air, O3, what we call ozone. And I noticed one of your commercials was for the air and air purifier.
Yeah, actually, speaking of commercials, we're going to take one real quick. Got to pay the bills. Okay. So stay tuned, folks, for Mr. Oxygen. Stay tuned.
First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. It's in your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas.
All right, folks.
That you can do.
We're back here in the Corporation Nation, and we are talking to Dr. Oxygen, Mr. Ed McCabe. And I just wanted to read a little excerpt here from a book called Wellness Secrets for Life, an owner's manual for the human body. Just because I think this is a very important concept. We have to remember that again, we don't think of oxygen when we think of the mineral table. We generally don't think of it because it's not something that we see, touch, taste, or feel. It's there and we take it for granted. But it is the eighth mineral on the chart there. I think it's number 8 in position. And if you think about it, the human body is composed entirely of nothing but minerals and, of course, water. In 1936, a report was given to the United States Senate that declared the shocking truth. Quote, 99% of the American people are deficient in minerals, and a marked deficiency in any one of the more important minerals actually results in disease. And that's actually the United States Senate document 264 in the 74th Congress, second session of 1936. Now, we are actually deficient, sir, in oxygen, which we don't think of again as a mineral per se, and come to find out, oxygen really is what it takes for all of our cells and all these minerals to subsist and to thrive in the body. And so it's actually, I'm sure that you agree, being your take on this, it's the most important quote unquote mineral that we can have.
Well, I want everybody in the listening audience to do something right now. Just listen to what I say and do it immediately. Stop breathing. Okay, now you're not breathing. Stop breathing if you've been breathing. Stop. Okay. Now, let's see how long you could go without having to breathe.
Darn you, I went 3 seconds. I was on the out.
That is how important it is. And you got to get that visceral feeling of the lack of oxygen into your brain so you can feel what it was like to not breathe, so you can understand the importance of what I'm telling you here tonight. So I found that the most important form of oxygen was not, although necessary for our life, it was not O2, which is what we breathe every day. The most important forms of oxygen are the active forms, which are all basically come down to the point of being O1, which is singlet oxygen. You hear about ozone therapy, ozone air purifiers, water purifiers, ozone injections, all this stuff. What that eventually does, as the ozone goes into someone or into a room or into the water or whatever, it breaks down and gives off O1. That's why it works so well. The other forms of oxygen above O2, they're all active forms as well because they're always reactive to something. They want to bond with something very quickly. That is the power of oxygen. So you have the O1 oxygen is what is needed, really, if you want to go after these anaerobic bacteria, viruses, fungus, and pathogens that cause all the disease that everybody has. If you really want to go after them, you want to use the best forms of oxygen. Well, the best forms of oxygen is what my book and my 4 DVD set are all about. I've been all over the world explaining this stuff for 26 years. As I said, I started before there were computers. And now we use the modern appliances to get the knowledge to you, since I can't be everywhere at the same time. But we've also got doctors, we've got manufacturers, we've got enthusiasts, patients, all the people that listened to everything I said over the past 26 years, and have all gone on to form their own companies, their own manufacturing plants, to teach these things, to use these things in their practices. Before I started, no one knew of the concept of oxygen therapy. I mean, We're not talking about the O2 again, the breathing oxygen. We're talking about oxygen therapies, which is all known ways of putting active forms of oxygen into the body. And that's what my book is all about. That's what my tapes are all about, my DVDs. It's to tell you all the things you don't know that should have been the very first things that you were taught when you were a child, so that you would understand just how important it is. Now, the second most important thing about oxygen, besides the fact that it kills active oxygen, that it kills all the bacteria, virus, fungus, and pathogens, is that oxygen is the only way your body is designed by nature to clean itself out. So if your body doesn't have enough of its own oxygen supply constantly coming into it to allay the constant infiltration and attack of the pollution and all the bacteria, virus, fungus, and pathogens, etc., that try to get into us, what we have is a situation where this toxicity, this pollution from hydrocarbon emissions, things that make your cigarette burn longer, things that make your beer foam stay up, all the stuff that hurting you in the first place, is even worse when you count in all the additives, the pesticides, the colorings, the flavorings, the extenders, the anti-foam agents. They're even put plastic in buns for the grinders down at the local store there, we find out.
Sure. Now, when we actually when we see commercials for, say, cleaning agents, we constantly hear that this product is an oxidizer. It like you say, it cleans by oxidizing. So what is the difference? And how does why does the body need antioxidants if oxygen is so important?
Well, the name given to the antioxidants, it's really, what you're talking about really is just dark green and yellow vegetables. That's what antioxidants come from. That's what they really are, not the synthetic forms, but the actual natural type. What they do is they regulate the oxygen metabolism in our body. It has to be regulated. If you were to stroke a fire too high, it would melt the furnace. Well, if you put it too low, nothing happens. So there's these regulators that make the oxygen utilization in our cells go at the rate it's supposed to go so that everything stays nice and safe and healthy. And you have to have these modulators, these adjusters, these tenders of the fire, let's call it. You have to have them. But then some people come along and they want to sell more of their pills, so then they start getting all these PhDs to write all these phony stories. They buy them out, and they write all these phony stories about theories that have never been proved, but they just keep repeating them over and over and over and over and over and over and over, so that you assume, you wake up and you've heard it your whole life, you assume it's true. Well, it's not true. Oxygen is a free radical, yes, that has to be adjusted and kept in its place by the natural substances we call vegetables and antioxidants, etc., on the planet. But the name antioxidant implies that you're trying to stop oxidation. If I was to stop your oxidation, I have the perfect antioxidant, here you go, you're dead, instantly dead. So it isn't about antioxidant, antioxidation. They try to make that connection in your brain so you'll think negatively about oxygen. They'll tell you you can rust inside, which is crazy. All this stuff. It's to sell pills. It's to sell pills and to get you afraid of oxygen. Those are the two main things they would love to do, is sell more product and get you away from all the competition.
Well, that's interesting, because the gentleman we were talking about earlier, which was Mr. Koch or Koch, found out the hard way that the industries don't want this information out. He actually got shunned when he introduced his research, that, which is basically what you're saying, is that oxygen is the cure-all for most of what ails us. We'll be back, folks. Stay tuned for Mr. Oxygen at McCabe.
Watching
folks. Welcome back here at the Corporation Nation, here on Republic Broadcasting. Guest today is Dr. Oxygen himself, Mr. Ed McCabe. I'd like to ask you a question here. Now, we have you were listing off a bunch of things that we have been putting into our bodies. There's two things I want to specifically ask you about. One of those is, of course, fluoride. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but the main function of sodium fluoride, when it's used as basically a poison to kill rats and other creatures, is specifically to destroy the enzyme function of the body. So it literally will cause whoever takes that poison in that dosage to basically starve to death, even while it's eating all the food it can. It simply cannot digest the elemental minerals out of the food supply to keep the body going. So it doesn't just kill you, it actually starves you no matter what you do. And of course, this is what we're putting in our water supply. Of course, our water supply is a big source of oxygen as well. And as we know, we can live a long time without food, but if we don't have water, as well as air, of course, but if we don't have water, we're dead. What dare I ask? Why in the heck we allow this fluoride to be put in our water?
The fix is in. It's real simple. It's money. Money. Money agreed. If you look at the Environmental Protection Agency, their own employees, their workers, have published papers against fluoridation. So everybody that works for the EPA, their union has come out against fluoride. And yet, I was looking at the brochure from the water here where we live in southeast Florida, and they were saying, well, we put fluoride in the water to protect your teeth. And it's all a lie. It's all a lie. Fluoride is a byproduct of aluminum processing. So they process aluminum, they got this stuff, and they go, what do we do with it? Well, let's sell it to everybody. But I remember in the 50s, when I was a kid, living with my grandmother at the time, and the idea of fluoridation was a big deal. You know, there wasn't health consciousness like there is today. You had Jack LaLanne or somebody like that, or, you know, maybe Marlon Perkins when he was a pup. I don't remember, but I remember there was this fight. My young brain was going, this doesn't sound right. Why do they want to put this chemical into the water? There was actually a doctor that was paid to travel around the U.S., go from town to town to town, to convince everyone to put this in their water supply. Now, the enlightened, modern, health-conscious public utility managers will use ozone water purification. Now, ozone is oxygen, and you bubble ozone through water or any other liquid, you purify it completely. What happens is any chemicals, anything that doesn't belong in there, are going to be completely eliminated. So you're actually putting this active oxygen into water. So communities with their purification systems, a lot of them use chlorine and different ones, but the truly enlightened ones don't use anything, they don't add anything, but they do put ozone into the water. And then the ozone keeps the pipes clean, they keep the water clean, and they have substations that put more in along the way until it gets to your house. SeaWorld, for example, there's the Swim with the Sharks experience in Orlando, the amusement park. Their water is all purified with ozone. It's nature's purification system, of course, so it's the most natural thing for the birds and the animals that they have in the zoos there. But that oxygen is vital for health. And when the oxygen level starts to drop, you got a problem with your animals because they're not going to be so happy, and they're going to be aggressive because they're irritated, stressed by environmental factors, etc. Well, the same thing with people. When people don't have enough oxygen, like let's say during a smog alert, well, they'll jump out of their cars and shoot the guy in the car next to them because they're so mad they got cut off. Well, that whole thing is caused by the underlying stress at an unconscious level where your body doesn't even realize that it doesn't have enough oxygen. It just knows something is wrong. It's semi-suffocating, so to speak. So what we have is a situation, the rest of the country, not in a 5-star smog alert, et cetera. And it's certain really smoggy places like Los Angeles, whatever. Other places in the country, we have a chronic oxygen deficiency. Just like you said, there's these minerals we're supposed to have according to the Senate document, and the Senate document says that we don't have them, and that was back in 1936. Well, that's 71 years since then. How many fewer minerals do we actually have? It turns out there's a lot fewer minerals than we actually have. So the body never gets the oxygen it needs to clean itself out, because the basis of all detoxification, I don't care whose product it is, what store you bought it at, or online store or whatever, all the detoxification methodologies rely upon getting the body to combine oxygen with whatever the unnatural substance is that doesn't belong in the body, oxidizing it, burning it up, and then excreting it, sweating it out, throwing it up, whatever it is. You get rid of what's not supposed to be in you. And I call anything that's not natural, part of your body process or food, I call that a toxin, because it does not belong in you. The problem we have now is that the environment is so overpolluted. You even have, Antarctic seals with the levels of lead and such, and just from breathing the oxygen themselves. And this is one of the most pristine remote places on the planet. Well, even our pollution is even being shown up there. So we have a situation where our bodies can't keep up. Nature designed us to run at a certain level of cleanliness, a certain level of oxygen. That may have originally, not now, but originally when we were first on the planet, we may have had 38% oxygen in the air. Now, this is back from the Cretaceous era, doing studies on oxygen trapped in amber and rock, etc. But now today we find we only have 20%, 21% oxygen, and that's in a lot of places where people aren't really zeroing out their meters, because when you buy one of these oxygen meters for the air, you say, well, how do I adjust the scale? How do I adjust the needle? They say, well, just set it to 21%. Well, there is no sample of pure oxygen for you to set it next to. The manufacturer just tells you you've got 21%. So you have a situation where, for example, in a bus terminal underground, you'll have a lot less oxygen. Gary, Indiana, with all the steel mills around there. In the teens, the oxygen level was measured in the teens because there was so much smog. So you've got, if we were designed to run on 38% oxygen, if that's true, we now have less than half of the oxygen that nature designed for us to have. So that means you're taking out less than half of the trash, since all the toxins and all the things that are polluting our bodies are dependent upon having a robust amount of active oxygen available, and the body's immune system, the neutrophils, make hydrogen peroxide and ozone, which both supply the body with active oxygen. So we have 4 enzymes, back to the fluoride destroying the enzymes, we have 4 enzymes that allow our immune system to take the ozone and peroxide it makes in the neutrophils, in the peroxisomes and the lymphocytes, and turn it into water and active oxygen, and release that singlet oxygen, which is what kills all the bacteria, virus, fungus, and pathogens. So if you've got something like fluoride that's going to kill the enzyme reaction in the body, what you're doing besides starving the body to death is you're also preventing the immune system from working. So now today we have a system where everybody's getting fluoride, and there's another mineral that's been missing from our diets since 1954, and that is sulfur, pure organic sulfur. Without that, our body can't make amino acids that our immune system depends upon, and not having enough sulfur means that you don't have oxygen transport in your body, and the cell walls are thicker and thicker, so they hold more toxins back, and the oxygen cannot get into them easily because the cell walls are so thick, and so the actual oxygen can't even get into the cells.
And sulfur actually helps to build and repair the myelin sheath and the other things that are actually damaged from, say, vaccines and other injectable drugs as well. And doesn't sulfur? It's also a scavenger of free radicals, and it sort of increases blood circulation, right? Yes. Which increases oxygen.
Yes, exactly.
So it seems like all these elements, and I should say these are elements and not minerals, and some of them are minerals, but oxygen is actually an element. There's the commercials again. We'll be back, folks. Stay tuned.
We've already stripped you of your liberty, privacy, civil rights, and dignity. You want some more?
Scientists have been battling to understand what this unappealing object is all about.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy, our sensory systems, and then it explodes into this enormous collage.
We're talking today to Mr. Oxygen. Ed McCabe, I've got two websites for you, sir. It's MrOxygen.org and also oxygenhealth.com. Both of them have very, very, very many different links and places you can go, including there's also a YouTube video that you can watch, which I thought was outstanding, by the way. Again, your book is Flood Your Body with Oxygen, and then you also have a 4 DVD set. And I want to get into that in the next hour, as well as what exactly oxygen therapy is, as well as ozone therapy as well. But I have one more question/comment that I want you to speak on to close out this hour. And simply that is that we do the stupidest thing, without even knowing it, of course, but we do the dumbest thing we could possibly do, and that is we drink carbonated beverages. And, of course, they lower the oxygen level in the blood and inhibit the lungs from actually saturating the blood with oxygen molecules. And so if you were to drink a soda and, say, go for a run or a swim, your athletic performance, your endurance, basically, would be compromised because you're literally blocking the oxygen, basically, from being active in the blood. So, I mean, basically, when you drink a carbonated soda, and the process to do that is to inject this carbon dioxide gas into the drink, literally, it disrupts, if I'm not mistaken, it disrupts the oxygen transport and delivery systems throughout the body. So your body, if you correct me if I'm wrong, if you put a soda into your body, you're basically just completely halting its ability to utilize one of the most important things it can, which is oxygen.
Completely stopping it, you'd be dead. So, you make it away from the meal, your level will go down, your oxygen level will go down, and then it goes up again as it works its way out of your body. But you have to remember that the cellular poison, cellular toxin, the byproduct of cellular metabolism is carbon monoxide. That's why when someone wants to kill themselves, they start breathing their car exhaust. Well, that carbon monoxide locks into the blood. It doesn't like to leave. So it's a way of suffocating very slowly. Luckily, you don't have enough in like a bottle of Italian sparkling water to kill you, because that would be horrible.
Well, to be clear, it's actually a mineral compound that actually binds with your blood to create sort of an altered hemoglobin, right? I mean, it actually starts, as far as monoxide, it actually combines with your blood and just pretty much destroys the oxygen function of the cells. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's why it's good that our cells can rebuild and refurbish themselves, and the bone marrow is constantly making new cells, stem cells, whatever. Your body is constantly working to straighten itself out. The problem we have is when something like that is combined with other things that are hurting the body. For example, you'll have, if you go to like Kentucky Fried Chicken now, you can only find one item in the whole menu that's got the name chicken on it, and that's copywritten.
Yeah.
And the only reason they can use it is because you can copyright something and call it XYZ. It doesn't mean anything. So there's one item on the menu that says chicken on it. Well, what's all the other stuff? You got to ask yourself, what's the other stuff? And when you look at the ingredients on the food labels in this country, which are full of petroleum byproducts, all sorts of things you can't pronounce, you don't know what they do. You go to another country, let's say England, for example, you'll find that the fast food French fries are just potatoes and salt. That's it. That's what they're supposed to be. Okay, but over here it's potato salt and an anti-foaming agent and maybe some plasticizer to go along with that. It's just crazy what that money being directed by somebody, the money has been allowed to overtake common sense and good health in the United States. So there's this agenda to sell products that are no good for us, and yet put them in the food to either get rid of them, like with the byproduct of aluminum processing, fluoride. So you either get rid of them by feeding to the people, or you've got stuff for the landfill. Landfill doesn't make you money. So you find that they're selling all kinds of things, not only these carbonated waters, but everything in the menu, everything we eat. You know, it gets so dark that people just turn off. Like someone, let's say someone in Miami is listening to this radio show through a terrestrial broadcast. Well, they're listening to me. They've maybe never heard of this stuff, but their friends are kind of talking about it, but they're not quite sure. But they go, well, that's just too much to think about. I can't comprehend that. I can't take responsibility for the fact that everything I eat is toxic. All the air I breathe is toxic. All the food I eat, the water I drink, everything I touch, everything I wear, the stuff we wash our clothes in, there's toxic components to all of it. It's just overwhelming. So what you end up doing is you end up dismissing all of it. You go, well, what can you do? You know, my dad used to say, you can't fight City Hall. What are you going to do, Ed? You know, what are you going to do? It didn't matter what he said. I went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
You know, I'm a best-selling author, and I've got all these formulas for oxygenating and mineralizing the body that we haven't even talked about. But that's my way of fighting City Hall. The way to get rid of what you don't like is to do something better. And so people go, hey, well, I don't need that anymore. I like the better thing. And the better thing just happens to be healthier for you, happens to be something you can really see in your life real quickly.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of Florida, speaking of, I think it was Miami, I was reading that you tried to present and actually have a booth at the, you were talking about AIDS earlier, that you were trying to actually promote this within that community, and they basically wouldn't let you. Tell us about that.
Well, I had a fellow that was a real enthusiast, and he wanted to really help us, and he said, hey, he lived in Miami, and he said, hey, they got the whole AIDS run and walk and conference and all that going on down here. He says, I'm going to set up a booth, and I'm going to sell your book. It should go like hotcakes, because in the book we have examples of people that turned PCR negative. In other words, they couldn't find any trace of the AIDS infection in their bodies anymore. And these people, at one point I brought some of these people onto the Maury Povich show, and nobody cared. Nobody's interested.
And again, that's because these so-called viruses cannot live with oxygen, right? They're anaerobic.
If you flood your body with oxygen, everything that doesn't belong in you will leave. The body will push it out, burn it out, sweat it out, defecate it out, urinate it out. Somehow the body will find a way to take the energy of the oxygen to oppose the low deadening energy of the toxins and the poisons, which just barely limp along and drag you and your consciousness down to a low level along with them. Well, the oxygen is nature's, the way ozone is made, for example. Ozone is the sun's photonic energy, that high light energy strikes the oxygen in the atmosphere. The oxygen, of course, comes from the trees, the new growth of the forest, and the plankton, and it rises up, and that becomes the sea of oxygen that we live in. Well, the top part of that C is struck first by the light from the sun. That takes the O2 stable oxygen the plants made, breaks it into O1 because it gives them so much energy, the two oxygens don't need to hold hands anymore to exist. They can each exist alone because they're so highly charged. Well, that O1 then recombines into O3, O4, O5, O6, O7. And so you have all O21 and beyond. We have these high energy levels of ozone, allotropes of oxygen, up in the atmosphere that fall to Earth, and then they clean the food, the water, and the air. That's what it's supposed to do. But when you overpower nature by manufacturing more pollution than natural systems can keep up with, you end up with a toxic overload and chronic disease, and that's where we are.
Well, it almost sounds like you are trying to sell a cleaning agent, and that's in truth exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to sell nature in its finest form, and it's really an amazing thought. I'll tell you one thing, sir. I'll bet you are not loved by the pharmaceutical and medical industries, are you?
Oh, no, I've never asked him.
I didn't think so. We'll be back with Mr. Oxygen after this break.
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks. Here in the second hour of the Corporation Nation. I'm your host, Clint Richardson. With me today is Ed McCabe, better known as Mr. Oxygen. I'm looking at your main website, your home site, at oxygenhealth.com, where it lists your newest book, I believe, which is aptly titled "Flood Your Body with Oxygen." Now, your original book in 1988, you self-published, which unfortunately is necessary for those of us who are sort of bucking the system. With no major publisher, you were able to sell over 250,000 copies, so I commend you for being able to do that. You've, of course, spoken all over the world. You've been on TV, and you've certainly been on a lot of radio shows. So you're not new to this at all. But what, when we're talking about your Flood Your Body with Oxygen book, now are you giving detailed instructions on how to do this? Are you recommending certain doctors? Obviously, you're not the administrator of the oxygen therapy. What is exactly oxygen therapy? What is the difference between O2 and O1, and how do people get into this?
Well, they get into it by buying the book or the DVD, and that's simple to do. Like you said, you go to oxygenhealth.com or MrOxygen.com or org, and there's also a company here in Miami that is the master distributor for all my formulas, which I had to come up with because I would be giving lectures telling people, well, this is what's happened to you, and this is what you need to do according to every expert I interviewed. Here's the results that they're seeing. And people would always demand at the end of the lectures, well, where do we go? What do we buy? What do we buy? Everybody wants to know, what do you buy? Where do you go? And for a long time, a couple of years, I didn't even tell people where to go. I just handed out Xerox copies of all the manufacturers that I could find that were kind of into this area. but not really, because there wasn't that much there. There just wasn't that much there. So eventually I said, well, okay, now people are starting to get into it. They're starting to manufacture these things, but I don't think they're doing it quite right. They're not doing it right. So I eventually had to come up with my own formulas. But because I was saying so much about the oxygen, I couldn't sell anything. So there's a company in Miami which is called Oxygen America. Oxygen America, and it's oxygenamerica.com. They sell and master distribute all my formulas all over the world. So that's the straightest way into it. Now, the other way is to get the book and the DVD and understand that in the book and the DVD, I explain almost, because there's always something new, but almost all known ways of oxygenating the human body. I explain why. I explain what typical results people got when they did it. I explain the different therapies, what they are, how people do them, because I don't want to prescribe for anybody. That would be illegal. So what I do is I give examples of how people have been using them. And the book is written internationally. It's not written for sick people. It's written for humanity at large internationally. It is international in scope in that we have lists of places you can start to look for doctors and such in just about all the countries of the world. Russia's very big. China, Italy, Germany for sure are huge on this stuff. You will find that when I speak about things like oxygen, singlet oxygen, ozone therapy, etc., you'll find that everything I'm telling you is true and can be backed up if you will just do the research of reading the thousands and thousands of medical sites that already exist over the past 50 or 100 years of doctors using these therapies. For example, there were some doctors listed in the Lancet, which is like the American Medical Journal, but more prestigious, the British Medical Journal Lancet. They're listed in there as curing plague in the 1920s. And they simply did that by injecting hydrogen peroxide into people. Now, there's certain ways to do it. No one should be advocating someone just doing that. But the actual mimicking of our immune system, where our immune system creates peroxide, done correctly, these doctors saw that everybody, all the Indian Gurkhas they were treating that had the plague were dying. The ones they injected got up and went home the next day, and everybody else died. So they wrote this up. This is back in the 20s. And since then, you've had thousands and thousands of articles. You had a huge German ozone industry before the Second World War, where the Allied pattern bombing, et cetera, specifically targeted high concentrations of doctors doing ozone therapy, just bombed them out of existence. And the result was that over all these years, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, the 80s, the 90s, now the 2000s, we have doctors setting out and writing clinical studies showing that, well, this worked, this worked, this worked, this is what we assume happened, this is what's going on. And there's thousands of them. There's in the United States alone, although never mentioned by anyone except me, there's the National Institute of Health's publication PubMed, PUBMED, and you can look on there, type in the two-word key phrase, quotes, ozone therapy, and you'll get over 2,500 sites proving everything I've been saying on here, from the action of the singlet oxygen delivered by the ozone, the singlet oxygen, there's thousands and thousands of sites on peroxide. What's going on? You never hear of it here. Most of the people listening to the show have never heard of these things, which is the most important things for their health they ever could have heard, because no one's paying for them to hear about it. So you get these companies like the pharmaceutical company where they've now got 75% of the people in our country are on pills or on medication of some kind. What is wrong that 3/4 of a population thinks that it can't exist without getting pharmaceutical drugs?
Sure, you know, the amazing thing about that is that, well, we know that what's called iatrogenic injury basically is anything induced inadvertently by a physician, a surgeon, any medical treatment that causes a disease of some sort or an injury is iatrogenic, and that's one of the leading causes, of course, of health problems and disease. And yet, when we take these pharmaceutical drugs, they have warnings that they are going to be pretty much for sure iatrogenic in nature. They're going to cause other symptoms. They're going to harm other parts of your body. They might cause cancer. They might do all these different things. It is very strange, isn't it? We actually have been taught to believe that we are sick due to somehow a lack of a pharmaceutical drug. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're deficient. Life isn't good enough to create you. We have to help boost it along here, and modern science will come to your aid. You watch what a doctor prescribes. He'll sit there and he'll listen to the patient for 5 minutes, describe everything that's wrong, and then I'll go, okay, we'll give you A for this, B for that, C for that, D for that, E for that, and then X, Y, and Z. That'll cover the rest of it, what's going on with you. Well, no one's ever done a clinical trial to combine all those artificial petrochemical-based drugs together in human bodies. No one's ever tested to see what that would be, and so you get all these crazy side effects, which they try to list, the laundry list of side effects with the bottles, but they can't keep up to it.
That's okay, because they have other drugs that will cause other side effects that'll cure those side effects. Yeah, we'll be back, folks. Stay tuned.
Is this real, or is this just ride? The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. Life goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored. It's up and down, round and round, and it's very loud.
All right, folks, welcome back.
Don't worry, don't be afraid.
So, Mr. Oxygen, let's talk about some of the methods. Now, I have personally witnessed my friend and colleague, Dr. A. Truott. He actually has a very interesting system that he was using until, of course, the FDA busted in and accused him of practicing medicine without a license. Of course, he was just conducting a scientific experiment, if you will. What he was doing is he was connecting a cannula up to his well, I won't call them patients. You gotta be careful with all these legal words, don't you? And he wasn't healing or curing; he was scientifically helping. So crazy. But he actually was using something called Brown's gas, which is technically he referred to it as H3O, and he was combining that with his mineral supplements that he uses, which are actually elemental minerals, not compounds like you find in the stores, and they're angstrom size versus the like really, really small, so that they can actually penetrate the blood-brain barrier, etc. And then he was also attaching these people up to what he calls the photon sound beam, which is left over from, it's a combination of Tesla and Linus Pauling and all these different things. So he had this threefold thing where he was using the oxygen therapy through Brown's gas. He was inundating the body with mineral supplements, true elemental minerals, not compounds, and then bombarding those with basically a sound frequency and noble gases, electricity, and that was basically ozonating the blood, and you had this wonderful, wonderful thing going on in the body where he was literally getting rid of cancers and diseases almost overnight, and that's how powerful. This has the possibility of being that powerful. What are some of the methods that you actually recommend?
Method there is recirculatory hemoperfusion, or RHP, which is a phrase I coined in my first book. The idea there is you take blood out of one arm, you then filter that blood, remove toxins, etc., put ozone into the blood, which then further kills anything that doesn't belong in there, and then you filter it before it goes back into the body. So you
when
have
when you say you put ozone in, what do you mean?
Well, you simply picture injecting with a needle, except it's done in a machine, injecting a needle full of ozone into a tube full of blood.
Oh, okay.
In other words, you mix it in. Ozone's a gas and blood's a liquid. And so you put this gas, perfuse, putting a gas into a liquid is called perfusing. So you perfuse this ozone into this blood, and then that kills everything that's left that's not supposed to be there, that isn't a gross, heavy toxin caught by the first filter. The second set of filters then filter out everything that's not supposed to be there except the blood, and then this new sterilized blood and blood components that are what they're supposed to be, that's what goes into your body into the other arm. And this is a continuous loop process. You got to look real hard all over the world to find somebody doing this. It's so suppressed because it's the ultimate oxygen therapy. It's the ultimate ozone therapy. The second best ozone therapy is where you simply, as I told you, with the injection into a tube of blood, well, imagine you're injecting a gas, ozone, into a blood vessel. So the gas goes into the blood vessel, and then it diffuses throughout the body. Now, the reason that's the second best way to do it is because when you put the gas in, it immediately starts to kill everything that's not a normal, healthy cell. Normal, healthy cells are protected, self-protected, from being harmed by the lipid peroxidation or the destruction of their lipid envelope, their fat envelope around the cell. So the cells protect themselves. So a normal, healthy cell, the ozone doesn't touch it. It just goes to the first thing it can find that's not a natural thing. Remember I said anything that's not natural or food doesn't belong in the body. So it will go find the closest thing, and as soon as it touches it, it starts to dissolve it. It'll start to oxidize it right there on the spot. So depending on how much you put in and how long you do it, you create this toxicity now diffused, now neutralized into just a pile of dirt. Let's call it a pile of dirt. And then this pile of dirt goes down to your liver, your kidney, your lymph. It's filtered by the body, and then eventually it will either be defecated out, urinated out, whatever. The body's like a car or a water purification machine, and if you give it enough ozone, it purifies the liquids, the blood and the lymph, which is the two main fluids of the body. These two fluids will be sterilized when you put ozone into the body. Now, the problem is that we are so toxic, and everybody is so polluted. I mean, it used to be you could do like this injection therapy in 3 weeks, and after 3 weeks you'd see amazing results with detoxification reactions, and people's chemistry would change and flip over to the healthy side of life, etc. Now it may take 4 or 5, 6 weeks of doing this because people are so polluted. You can't do this quickly because people are so polluted. If all that pollution left, it would be like rush hour with everybody trying to get into the off-ramp at the same time. It would just back everybody up.
Well, that's certainly a side effect of, speaking of side effects, that is the side effects really of this type of, even with weight loss and that sort of thing, is that your body starts expelling things, which means that they're kind of loose in the body, and you will have side effects simply from poisons suddenly floating around trying to get out of your body that will actually create, sometimes you get sick from it, which is actually a good thing. That's the funny part.
Yeah, which is what makes the RHP superior, because you don't send it after you kill it or oxidize it. You don't send it back in to the body have to go through the kidney, the liver, the lymph. You don't have to go through the body filters, which then can give you a reaction of a fever or whatever, as the body has to clean the filter out now. Even though you've killed everything in there, it's still sludge, and it's got to be acted on by the body. So it takes longer that way. That's why the direct injection method, although it's more popular because it's simple, I mean, a doctor just goes to buy a medical ozone machine and he starts injecting people, and if he keeps his mouth shut, he stays in business for a long time. Or if he does it completely legally, according to the state he's in, he stays in business for a long time. And that is the way that most people will hear about this or see it or feel it. But the RHP is far superior, and I advocate it because you don't send anything back through the kidney to liver to lymph. The filters of the body don't get involved, so you don't have the real bad meaning more higher fever, more diarrhea, more vomiting, whatever. Yeah. And you may not have any of those things. If you do it correctly, like if you take supplements, in my opinion, if you take supplements, and you do them, and they're the good supplements, like the ones I recommend, and do that for a long time, starting very, very low in the amount you're taking, and then slowly increasing it, and then you get to a place where you start to feel bad, well, you simply stay at that spot. You never stop abruptly, but you just stay at that spot, and in a couple of days, that will just clear. Whatever side effect you were getting, in a sense, from cleaning yourself out will pass. And once it passes, then you start increasing it more. Finally, you get to a place where you're really clean, and then you come off it really, really slowly. That is the best therapy in the world for every disease.
Flood your body with oxygen, he says. We'll be back with Mr. Oxygen after this.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn, Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow.
Well, welcome back, folks, here in the Corporation Nation. My guest today it's Mr. Oxygen. I just love saying that. Ed McCabe, his book, Flood Your Body with Oxygen, is what we've been talking about. If you'd like to call in, Ed has actually agreed to come back next Monday because, gosh darn it, we've got so much stuff to talk about. It's a very, very vast subject, and after all, it's your health. 1-800-313-9443, 800-313-9443 if you'd like to call in over the next half hour and ask some questions. Ed, you said you wanted to mention something about the blood and how oxygen affects it.
Right. Now, everybody, wouldn't it be cool if you had an idiot light on your body, like the ones in your car that say check generator, check computer, or whatever, check fuel? Wouldn't it be great if nature had supplied you with a gauge that you could actually look at, and it'll tell you how healthy you are? You don't have to pay anybody. Well, that already exists, and you came with that option. Now, what I'm talking about is the blood. The more polluted our blood is, the less health you will have. The more anaerobes, we've been talking about bacteria, virus, fungus, pathogens can't live in singlet oxygen. Well, the more anaerobes you have, and the more toxins, plasticizers, foam reducers, all these artificial ingredients, colors and flavorings and things, all these things that go into your body has no genetic code or enzymes to digest them. That's why I've discovered that the major cause of disease comes back to your digestion, because you can't absorb the little bit of nutrients you're finding in your food these days, because it's all processed and blanched and bleached out, etc. Then your body simply isn't absorbing the minerals you need. Once you don't have that, you don't have the raw material for your enzymes, your digestion, your stomach acid. Everything goes out of whack. Your pH goes acid instead of alkaline. All this stuff goes on. But you can prevent all that by getting a handle on looking at yourself instead of guessing, well, I don't know what to do. Does this work or not? I'll tell you a quick way you could find out. It's the color of your blood. Your blood originally, and if you go back to the movies from the first color movies, like in the 40s and 50s, you will see when someone gets shot or you see blood, it's bright cardinal red. I'm talking bright, bright red. You'll see it. Now, when you look at a movie and you see when someone gets shot, there's blood everywhere, it'll be a little bit of red, but mostly it's black. It depends on the producers of the show and their special effects people, whether they want to show people as they are today, which is the black blood, the dark blood, or you want to show them as they're supposed to be, which is healthy. So you can tell the state of your health by how black, unhealthy, or how cardinal bright red, healthy you are. Because when your blood is full of oxygen, your blood is clean. The anaerobes are gone, the toxins are gone, there's nothing there but the blood, and the blood is completely clean. The natural color of that blood is bright, bright, bright red. I mean, it's really bright red. So now, if, let's say one of the networks, and we saw this, one of the networks followed someone who went to an ozone therapy clinic in the Caribbean, and they showed them getting the ozone treatments, and their blood, you could see coming out, was a brighter color than the blood they had before they started the treatment. You could see all that. But then they followed them when they got home, and they showed the person giving themselves an ozone injection. Well, you could see while they were doing the injection, you could see the actual color of the blood that person was when they got home. Turns out the people they did this story on didn't stay there long enough, didn't get clean enough, and you could see in their blood it was still brown or dark purple, or when you're really, really sick, it's, cancer, etc., it's the darker shades. But if that person had done the therapy correctly, stayed there long enough, had enough money to stay away from their home in the Caribbean at the time, to get this therapy enough times in the proper way, you would have seen their blood turn bright cherry red, bright cardinal red, and it wouldn't go back to the brown real quick. It would take a while living back in society with the pollution and not getting any oxygen supplementation or any oxygen therapy. You would see that blood be dark. So you could tell exactly. And then they said, well, the treatment didn't work because the person still has cancer. Duh. or let's try. No.
Yeah. Well, now this, folks, this is not an invitation to start, poking your skin and seeing what color your blood is. You probably want to have that done in a more professional way. Yeah, we're not suggesting you go get shot like in the movies either. Let's go to the phones, my friend. Jerry in Chicago. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Oh, let me finish this one thought, Jerry. Hang on.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You go to the Bloodmobile. The Bloodmobile, you go give blood. Instead of going while you're at the movies, they get the Bloodmobile parked out there in the shopping mall. Go in there and look. First of all, you go look at the table. You'll see the bags of blood they've just taken out of everybody. They're all black. They're all black. No wonder 75% of the people are on pills and potions. Their blood is filthy, filthy, filthy. That's why they're all diseased. That's why when you get blood donated by somebody from one of the hobo park or something, you get a fever. It's because your body's reacting to all that stuff that's not supposed to be in your blood. You won't see bright red blood unless you get somehow your oxygen level up, which cleans your blood out, which makes your health go back online because the body has an immune systems again. So that's what you got to look for. So that's how you tell what kind of state you're in. Check the color of your blood.
Well, gosh. Okay. Jerry in Chicago. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking my call. It's very interesting that you're talking about oxygenating the body and the blood and everything else like that. But I got a question for you. And one was about EDTA. They sell it at the health food store, chelation, which is oxygenating your lower GI, I guess, or your insides, whatever. And the other question is how important is it to detox so you can your body will accept this?
Well, picture like a graph where you have one side of the graph that's increasing, the other side of the graph that's coming down. As your toxicity level lowers, your oxygenation, your cleanliness, your health, your sterilization level will increase, which is why I say just take your time. Get the best oxygen supplements, the best plant mineral supplements you could possibly get. Start giving them to yourself. Start increasing how many you're giving, And this is just my opinion. I'm not prescribing for anyone. And as you increase the intake of the proper nutrients, oxygen, plant minerals, sulfur, like we have a product called oxysulfur, which is organic sulfur. You put these things into your body, and your body will respond, in my opinion, not guaranteeing anything because everybody's different, but in everybody I've ever seen who takes a full course of supplementation therapy, over time, whatever they've got wrong with them either gets better or gets manageable or goes away completely, or maybe nothing happens at all. It depends on your mindset, your energies, your genetics. There's a lot of things to go into play here. But I am saying, in my opinion, the majority of people that will simply follow the advice and flood your body with clean forms of oxygen and plant minerals advocated by physicians for centuries, let's say, nature, and get your body closer to nature. The farther you are away from nature, the sicker you're going to be. The closer you are to nature, the brighter in red color your blood is going to be, with the less pollution, less anaerobes, less microbes, viruses, bacteria living in it. So it's a gradual process, and everybody takes a different amount of time because some people are terribly toxic. Other people are like a runner, let's say. He might be cleaner, but he's still got toxic food and toxic air, but he'll be a little farther along towards toxin removal than just the average person, drinking beer in front of the TV every night. So everybody's different, but the point is you get back to nature. You get back to nature, which means oxygen and plant minerals, especially in the mineral field, especially the organic sulfur, like the oxysulfur that we
So really, oxygen is, for all intents and purposes, the most natural and wonderful detox you can think of.
All detoxes are oxygen detoxes. That's what I was saying in the first part of the show, was that every single detox you could think of somehow increases the body's ability to combine oxygen to the toxins. Now, the reason I say that is because nothing could leave the body unless it's first combined with oxygen. So, well, if nothing could leave the body and you're trying to detoxify, if it can't leave without oxygen, shouldn't that be the first thing you look at? Is how much oxygen do I have in my body?
All right, Jerry, if you want to stay on the line, we'll be right back.
Derivatives, quantitative easing, trade imbalances, recession, low GDP, nations close to collapsing, and subprime loans, foreclosed homes, and people's taxes spent to bail out too big to fail AAA banks again. Fear levels rising as the US crash seems imminent, having smashed the debt ceiling of $14 trillion. Despite protests and clashes in Athens streets, the IMF imposed structurally unjust programs in Greece, where in fact the term economy entered our language from the Greek oikonomia, meaning household management. Well, how are we managing? Theories abound, but in practice, does anyone actually know what the hell's even happening? Well, seems we've come to our global auditing, our financial day of reckoning. It's an interesting quandary. Have we invested too much in this enterprise to admit the solution might be...
All right, folks, welcome back. There we go. So, let's see. Let's go back to the phones real quick. And again, Mr. Oxygen here has agreed to come back next Monday because there's just a lot of information on this, on how it works in the body. Jerry, do you have anything else you wanted to say? Ask.
Question is when you talk to people about their health and they're 58, 59, 60 years old, they're diabetics, they're on insulin, they're on several other pharmaceutical medications and everything else like that, and they don't understand anything that you're saying. Could that be a toxin in the brain that's making them stupid?
Absolutely. Okay. One of the major reasons I got into this, the shingle we hang out front, the sign out front is oxygen equals health, okay? But the real reason is oxygen equals consciousness. Oxygen equals your ability to be more conscious, because that's what the body runs on. That's what you're swimming in, is a sea of oxygen. Now, the darkness is, of course, polluting the world, polluting your body, opposing life itself. So the oxygen is like the warrior set out by the light to overcome the darkness, trying to invade your body. And if you have more darkness coming in, you have more sickness coming in. If you have more and more light codes, light energies, photonic energy, ozone energy, all this stuff going into your body, the better chance you have of withstanding the terrible onslaught of all the pollution and all the negative thinking and all the negative emotions and the negative everything you find on this planet. It's really a tough spot we're in, and one of the things I'm doing is showing everyone it doesn't have to be as tough as you think it is, because the darkness itself is taking your mind, lowering it to try to make you more afraid, more, oh, there's nothing I can do. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. There's just too much. I can't listen to what he's saying, like you're saying about the people. I can't listen to what he's saying because there's so much. Where do I start? Well, I started by trying to tell everybody it doesn't have to be that way, and then thousands and thousands of people in my 26 years of teaching this to people, 26 years of interviewing thousands and thousands of people that have gone this route and done these things, that are all very, very happy that their lives are not like it used to be. In the spirit of that, I came out with formulas, which I gave to Oxygen America, oxygenamerica.com, and they sell all the basic things. The first one is OxyLift, OXYLIFT, and the OxyLift goes towards putting the plant minerals back into your body, the sea plasma back into your body. Subtle energies of oxygen uptake are also infused into this using Russian scalar technology. So I don't say a lot about this stuff because I don't want people think I'm just shilling. I'm trying to educate people that if they would just go to oxygenamerica.com and get some OxyLift and then see what it does. It's very simple, 7 drops 3 times a day. You start off with half that, and then you go up so you can get used to it, and then just see what it does after 2-3 months. Just see what it does. I don't have to tell you anything.
Yeah. All right, Jerry, thanks for the call, my friend. We got 2 more callers here. Mo. Let's see, Mo in Missouri. Do we have Mo?
Hey.
Hey,
What's
Mo,
going
what's
on?
up?
How are you?
Good.
I very much appreciate this oxygenation conversation. But what I want to go into is you were talking about things that affect us on a very small level. Are they called bioactive? If something is so small that it goes into the cell wall, is it called,
Well, that's what people in the marketplace, people try to invent new terms for whatever they're trying to sell. And one of those is now bioactive. Another is assimilable, although they're scientifically correct. They're, ad words now. And so if the body can assimilate something easier, for example, you eat some food, your body first has to burn it up with acid. First of all, you chew on it, and the enzymes get it ready to be burnt up with acid. And then after it goes through the acid wash, then there's an alkaline wash in your colon that your body extracts the other polarity, whatever it needs, minerals, basically. Your body is made of minerals. Your whole process of eating is to assimilate minerals, plant minerals, not rocks, plant minerals. That's what keeps us alive. That's where we get our energy. Now, you have to have enough oxygen so that your Krebs cycle and your other energy cycles go out of the body so you extract the maximum benefit from your food. And that's what I discovered was most people's problems. If you go into a pharmacy, you look at the amount of pharmaceutical drugs, stomach acidifiers, things for digestion. They just have, row after row of this stuff in the pharmacy because nobody is really digesting, and they're breaking wind, and they're burping up their esophagus. It burns when they burp, and all this stuff. Most people are like that, and they're not going to the bathroom like they're supposed to. We have a product called OxyFlush, Super OxyFlush, and the Super OxyFlush puts ozone into the body and turns your stools liquid. So you go to the bathroom 2, maybe 3 times a day, which is normal. Everyone thinks that just going once a day is normal. It's not. So those are all signs when things start to break down. That's all signs that your body's not digesting, and your digestion uses up, as your brain power does, a lot of oxygen. So if you don't have enough oxygen, you're not going to think clearly. You're not going to digest well. So all these things about is it smaller or not, there's a lot going on there. Like, is there oxygen available is even more important than the size, because instead of the mechanical stuff where the body has to beat it up and flush it with acid, flush it alkaline, and all that, what if it was already from a plant, already to the point where the body can absorb the minerals right out of it very easily because they're very, very tiny. So that's one of the things like colloidal silver. Silver is a wonderful thing to use along with oxygen. The reason it works so well is because it's not a chunk of silver. It's not a rock of silver. It's a colloidal suspension, which makes it very tiny. So then you can get into the advertising comparisons between all the manufacturers saying, well, ours is best because we have the smallest. So the whole
it's silver, for God's sake. It's supposed to be silver and not a compound mixed with something else, and it's supposed to be actually the mineral silver. My gosh. Hey, Joe, thanks for the call, man. Let's take one last call. Bill from Alabama, real quick. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Clint and Dr. Oxygen, or Mr. Oxygen. I happen to know that a lot of people have been helped by using food-grade hydrogen peroxide.
Right, that's the first part of my book.
Curing cancer, and I'd like to know if you've had any experience with that, and if so, what is your opinion?
Well, I was doing it myself in 1987. When my book came out in 1988, like the first third of the book is all about that. And the first part of my new book, Flood Your Body with Oxygen, Therapy for Our Polluted World, has a whole section on that, how they were using it in, these doctors I interviewed were using it in Africa, where all people had to eat was white bread and Coca-Cola. So imagine that diet, trying to run an immune system in an African, a poor African in the slums of Kenya with AIDS. All right? Yet they still got results. But they were giving the people the peroxide. But then they found out politically they couldn't talk about it that much. They had to talk about other things because all their other funding depended upon them using the quote-unquote standard treatments, which of course were never any oxygen therapy, because the pharmaceutical industry and therefore the doctors, medical schools, see that as competition to pharmaceuticals, so no one will fund that. No one will fund it being taught to the doctors, taught to the people, used by the people, and solving everybody's problems. You just don't see that. But peroxide is wonderful. I did it myself. I was so oxygenated from peroxide that I was in a room with so low oxygen it wouldn't support a match being lit. Wow. And yet I felt fine. I was in there half an hour.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Ed, why don't we start off next, if you're going to come back Monday, we'll start off next week talking about this in more detail. Sure. And Bill can maybe call back then. And why don't you give your websites out where they can get your book and DVD set?
Okay. Mr. Oxygen, MrOxygen.com. That's real easy. I'm Mr. Oxygen. My site's Mr. Oxygen. My other main website is Oxygen Health. That talks about the book. It's a lot of references. You could look up articles on that.
Absolutely. All right. I hate to cut you off. Oxygen, next Monday we'll have Dr. Oxygen back. Thank you.